Okay, well, let's see if this one works before we do anything with any of the settings. So it's started now.
Wait a minute, are you set on video?
Well, like I said, we might have to skip that for this to actually work, unfortunately. So we're gonna just.
It's on video right now.
Okay, so let's see what works
It
here.
says video and it's live.
Okay, so let's see. Now I can tell Allie she can get this link instead of that one.
But I can't start the video from over here.
It's already started. It's already running.
Is it?
Yep.
Well, then we're set to go.
Let me look and see how this is looking online. Okay, we're good. So that's using.
I'm trying to get it. See, it's on telephoto now.
Let me help.
Yeah, okay. It's the other way now. Okay, we better just
Do
leave
you
it.
want help? Okay. I
We'll
can.
just-
If you want, I can always. It's just like a real slow.
But then I won't be able to get it back when we start.
Yeah, and I can help. Like if you want.
Yeah,
You can just kind of cue me.
You can get it back and then you go up there.
Okay, so just kind of give me a cue, and then I can.
But is it running?
Yep.
Okay, well, let's just leave it there.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, guys, we got 5 minutes. Want some water, coffee, anything? Okay. Yeah. That's what we need to be having.
I can play that tape all the way through. That's starting me off and you didn't see me for months.
Yeah, it's been a hard time. Okay. Can you hear us okay, Allie? Can you hear us? Yeah, can you hear me now? We got 2 people on, so it's probably me and Allie so far. And then I'm sure once it starts, we'll see. So people can just like hop on and they can ask their questions and stuff like that. So, yeah. So we could.
Do they text the questions?
Yes.
Okay. I'm finding that arguing with texting, I always say, I like to talk to somebody when somebody's lying to me. But
Yeah.
I get too emotional if I'm arguing with somebody, so I'm finding the texting works really good.
That's true.
That's right, because you can't interrupt the text.
For sure. That's a good point. Yeah, right.
So like I said, and I refuse to try to type while I'm driving.
Oh, yeah, that's
just
not safe. I know. It's not safe for sure.
Jesse, don't you even think about it.
And is that your boy? Your son? Yeah. I remember, I think you brought him to like the last art night. Handsome young kid.
Yeah, you ought to see the women around. Oh, I did pretty good with the girls, but nothing like this. He just got his new car.
Yeah.
He's got
Good.
a Mustang convertible. My first car was a convertible, and then after that I got a Mustang. So I just did it all at once.
Heck
Don't try
yeah.
to be like me.
Get all the best ones, right?
So, and he got a ticket. Yes.
Oh, that'll happen. I bet.
My 1650, I got a ticket.
See, I don't think the zoom really works though, because it hasn't zoomed in yet. So I'm not seeing any change here.
Is this on a delay at all? Is that?
Yeah, there is a bit of a delay. There we go. Okay, now it's zoomed in. Yeah. Okay, it does work. Stan, did you find your hearing aid? Did you find it? Okay, well, let me look around and see if somehow it got somewhere else.
You would put it in your pocket, didn't you?
I've sent all the pocket.
Probably checked 100 times.
Yeah. That's just too weird.
That is really strange.
That is really,
I mean, I don't need it to do the
okay,
program.
yeah, but you need it eventually.
But still, I sure need your hearing aids, because I'm deaf without it.
Mhm. Well, I think we're just about at the start time.
Okay, so then, okay, all our lights on. Good, I don't think we're gonna have an audience at all, so.
Yeah, that's okay. I think, it's just at lunchtime too. We didn't, okay. So I guess I'll introduce and then we'll begin. Is that okay? You ready?
Yeah, that's good.
Can you see me?
Run over here.
All right.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Welcome to our first time back to our Lunch and Learn series on the first Friday of every month. We are bringing this event to you via live stream. We do have a few seats available in the museum as well. We're maintaining social distance and everyone has their masks, so we hope you plan to attend these events as we do them. We are honored to welcome Mike Fallier back to Pratt. He has taught a few workshops for the museum. You probably have seen his artwork. He is a well-renowned watercolorist and painter. He has had a very successful 40-year career in the field. His father was a fantastic, well-known painter. He taught at PCC here. So I will, without further ado, I will turn it over to Mike. And throughout the workshop, feel free, we will be watching your questions as you post them. So feel free to text or make a comment on the live feed, and we will relay those questions to our artist as he does his demonstration and try to work those in. So thank you, Mike, for coming. We really appreciate it, and we will turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
I appreciate that. Hi, boys and girls. I guess we've got the technology happening here, and I'm happy to be here and to paint live. I hope you can hear me with my mask on. What I want to do is a watercolor demonstration, a little bit about my background. I used to teach workshops through Pratt Community College back in the late 70s and the early 80s. And a guy named Gene Wyman, a good friend of mine, got me into these workshops. I don't have any education, so they had me do an hour-long videotape with the big carts. And long story, I did an hour-long videotape, and they said, hire him. And so what I did is through the continuing education department, they had me do out-district and on-campus workshops that related to one studio hour for art majors. We got money from Topeka and matched whatever money we generated, and I had a job. It was great. Reaganomics took over, and that was the end of that. But I learned a bunch. I got a lot of experience teaching, and I found out the best way for me to teach is like kind of a one-on-one. I always say I'm a pretty good teacher, but I'm a real good coach. And so to get a dialogue together, this situation as we are right now makes it a bit of a challenge. A little bit about my background. My dad, I grew up watching my dad paint greeting cards in Ohio. He worked for American Greetings and could paint flowers. I was telling Brittany, he could paint a rose with about as much effort as I signed my name. He could do, it was amazing. And these guys that my dad worked with, went to the Art Students League and Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, Butler School of Art, a bunch of those big schools back east. And they were my heroes when I was growing up. And so I still to this day, will emulate Robert Lasik and Tom Wilson, who used to do the Ziggy character at American Greetings. These are all friends of my dad's, and we all, I say we, I was just a kid, but they all worked off of each other. And when you put a bunch of artists together, we all pick and choose and do all that stuff. It was fun to watch when I was a kid because I didn't have any rules. So it was, that was kind of where everything came from. We ended up back in Kansas, and my dad started a gallery, and we both ended up at in Jackson, Wyoming, at the Savage Gallery, and I was 17 and launched my career. Since then, I've done the watercolors, acrylics, a lot of murals. I did a couple murals out at the college. They painted over not that long ago, but I painted those back in '78 first murals I ever painted, they gave me $50, I think, to do those. So anyway, I made my mark back in the day. Since then, I've been bouncing around, and you know, my dad was kind of a wicked wanderer. I guess I took after him, but here I am at the museum, and Dr. and Mrs. Filley. Well, Mrs. Filley had this is a wonderful painting. She had. I remember when my dad was selling paintings to her a long time ago, that they had stacks of paintings in their living room. And Dr. Filley was trying to get around all this stuff, and it was amazing. It was out by some lake, as I recall. Again, this is back in the late 60s, I guess, whenever it was. Anyway, I have a way to paint a watercolor. It's just my way. I always say in a workshop, you can read a stack of books as high as you can reach, and not two of them are going to be the same. It's we all have something. We have a comfort level that we can get established, and then sometimes kind of reach over the edge and take and you know, risk messing something up. That happens once in a while. I'm always saying that if you're not burning one out of every at least 10, you're not trying too hard. You know, you got to push the edge. What I do in a workshop is usually something that I'm pretty familiar with, that I have a kind of a formula for. And when I get people painting, follow my procedure. If you want to paint what I'm painting, that takes one of the problems away. Is what do I paint? Because you're looking at a big expensive piece of watercolor paper and you're scared. And I said, well, paint what I do. You want to paint something else? We're going to go to a 3-value sketch, light, dark, and a middle value. And then we can work out design issues and all that stuff. Not many people do that. Once in a while you find somebody who wants to do their own thing. Absolutely. I always encourage that. But here's what I do. You have watercolorists that have palettes that have the dishes in there. I never liked those because my yellow always gets messed up when you deal with blue. Let me get this thing off so you can hear me. I use a flat surface, and for whatever reason I got this. I should use some glass, but anyway, I've got some Prussian blue, which Prussian blue is a blue on the color wheel. It leans toward green, where ultramarine blue leans toward red. Okay, so it goes both ways from straight up blue. I guess cobalt blue would what should be called straight blue. No, that's cobalt for whatever reason. I got yellow ochre, which is a kind of an earthy yellow, and it works real good at washes. Alizarin crimson, which is a stain. You put that with Prussian blue, and there's all kinds of fun stuff can happen. My burnt umber is a versatile color. I can put it with ultramarine blue and get all kinds of grays. It makes it all the dark stuff that I have on my paintings. That's what that combination is. An ultramarine blue, which is very versatile. Once in a while, I'll use some Payne's gray, some cerulean blue, some cadmium colors. I don't use cadmium much for whatever reason. Some guys do. But today I'm going to be painting on some arches, watercolor paper. And arches, in my book, is the best stuff you can paint on. I've got some other student stuff that I'll do demonstrations on, these demonstrations for classes. Canson is the stuff that I've been using, and it is, it's about 140 pound, I think, maybe a little lighter than that. And it doesn't have much tooth, but it's real durable. You can beat it to death and it's still there. So for students, when they're kind of messing things up once in a while, you can save a painting just because of the durability of this particular paper. As far as brushes go, and again, this varies by artist, but this is what I like, is inch wide flat. This used to be called the Grumbacher Aquarelle, I believe, is what it was called. Now they've got a million imitators. But it's an inch wide flat with a beveled handle, and you'll see when I start scraping in here, that's handy stuff to have. And then any round brush, this is a 12, a 10 or a 12 is good to have. This small, what is this? This is a 10? That's not a 10. Anyway, it's an old Chinese brush, and that's what it is. Anyway, and then a liner, which this is kind of, I don't know, this is what I do, trees in it. Calligraphy looking stuff is real fun to do with that. you can get, these brushes can be a real dog. Find a good one if you're gonna bear down on that particular technique. Okay, now the virtue of watercolor to me is that it is wet. Okay, you can paint a watercolor as tight as you want to. You can do illustration with watercolor. You can do renderings with watercolor. And the main thing about a watercolor is you don't have any white paint. I don't look at that because I cheat sometimes. But
We won't tell.
Yeah, good. Thank you. The secret's ours.
And everyone.
The one thing about a watercolor, transparent aquarelle watercolor, is that it's transparent, and this can start some arguments, but in my book, it's the closest approximation to light in a painting medium that there is. What a transparency is. A slide is a transparency. There's no white paint. It's not opaque. It's Edgar Whitney was one of my heroes. I took a workshop from him back when I was in high school. My dad took me out of school and said, "You're going to take this guy's workshop." And, okay.
No, louder.
Oh, louder. Sorry. Oh, I love these things.
Make our lives difficult.
Anyway. But anyway, I took this workshop from Edgar Whitney, and he would come up with all these great sayings that he said, "Well, write that down."
Yeah.
You know, and he had a book, and I had him sign it, and I immersed myself in that. The guy did not paint pretty pictures. He did interesting relationships. He always said, that direction is no better than that direction, or that direction, until there is a relationship. That's boring, that's dynamic. You know, so that you have different considerations when you're painting. And he was a taskmaster. That workshop, you talk about Ricky, the guy over the cone's just 16 years old. Wow! You know, so it really, the book and that whole experience was pretty awesome. It really stuck with me all these years, and I still give him all the props. And he really died in '83. I mean, he's been a long time. This was in '71 when I took the workshop. I was out at the Old Art Association in Wichita. My dad was there. He loved my dad. My dad being a member of the American Watercolor Society. And my dad had competed nationally, got on the National Academy of Design show in New York City.
Wow.
In the AWS, which is at that time was only 400 members, and he was the youngest member in 1966 to get in. And so that was pretty hot stuff back in the day, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But Whitney was like a philosopher. And this guy would paint in his lap. He had a piece of masonite and this watercolor paper that was soaking wet, and put bulldog clips on each corner. Sit there and paint it on that side of the gun right there in his lap.
Wow.
People watching him doing all this stuff. And he says, "However you paint, don't worry, that's secondary. I feel stupid talking about materials and colors. What can you do? Not what do you have, but what can you do? Learn something. Find the edge. Find out what you can do. And be enlightened. We have to have the ability to marvel." I mean, he would say this stuff. He said a poem to my mom, just off the top of his head.
Aw.
Held her hand and said this poem to her, made my mom cry.
Oh, that's awesome.
This guy was cool.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yep.
Louder.
Louder, they were
They
saying.
can't hear you.
A
I'm
little.
not the technical wizard, and I'm not scream. Anyway,
Here, we can turn up the mic volume a little bit too.
yeah, all right. Anyway, I'm using this brush here. I do a wet on wet in the background. I think that technique, when the shapes that you make have a soft edge on them, they indicate distance or clouds. To me, it's a lot of clouds are soft edge. There's these nice transitions that you can see in the sky. So, it's like these paintings that I have. There's all these skies are done while the paper's wet. And that can be kind of scary when you've never done it before. You got a wet piece of paper in front of you, you're starting to throw paint down on it, and it's just you kind of lose control. What I do is always remember that the paper's got water on it. You you don't need so much on your brush. And I've seen my dad do these big full sheet watercolor demonstrations. I've never done that. So I can do that with a 3-inch wide brush and have brand new paint out there and just drop the paint hanging on and throw it down on a wet piece of paper and make it work. I've never done that in front of people. I've done a lot of things when nobody can see me, but that I've never done in front of folks. But anyway, that's what I want to do, is do the sky.
Just set it back down.
Put this bad boy down.
Just lay it down.
I'm gonna get this wet. We're having fun now.
Cool.
And what I'm gonna do is the sky and this background. Again, this doesn't have, you don't have to do this wet, but it's a technique that that me and many other artists use just because it suggests distance. And like I say, clouds are kind of a soft type of thing. So, God, this is the good paper too.
Ooh. Fancy.
You better look out, boys and girls. I got a little bit of ultramarine blue here. Remember, not too much water, because we have a wet piece of paper here. A little bit of this ultramarine blue, a little touch of this burnt umber, and knocks down. That blue's just a little bit raw for me, so I take a little bit of this burnt umber and indicate the sky. Now, I'm not going to detail it to death. Okay. I'm going to leave this kind of pretty much the way it is.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Thanks for bearing with me.
Hey, you're the
Okay.
expert.
Now I'm going to do this background again. Too many people get in this water and put a big pool of water on your palette,
Oh.
and that's what this paper towel is for. You can control the amount of water on your brush by that paper towel. So you're making notes here. I know you think you can do this.
No.
So you're next. Oh
no! I didn't know that was part of the deal.
Yes, and
You definitely
Stan's
want
an old artist, so.
You definitely want Stan too over me. He's very talented. He's pretty much a natural at painting.
I know, it's got those design and everything. I saw his shop. Go by and buy a photograph from old Stan.
There you go.
Some of them can be framed. Anyway, but you can see what I'm doing here. I better get this on here before it dries. Yeah, and it's all right if you don't. I'm gonna fix it. Watercolor, as a general rule, will dry lighter and grayer than it appears when it's wet. You shouldn't say general rule, it's like every time. And so don't be bashful. Putting that color in there. And this is something I love to do this. Watch this. Get this done here. This is a little flip stroke. We're painting around. I've got a barn laid out here. Sorry about that. I've got this barn laid out, and I'm going to paint around the barn because this is transparent. So I'm going to paint around it. See this brush?
Yeah. Ah.
What we're doing is indicating some lace. It just happens to represent a tree. Okay. Painting a dark lace on a light ground is real easy. I got one of these brushes. You can put all kinds of tree limbs. But doing a light lace on a dark ground is a little more, and you can paint negative around it, you can let it dry and then scrape into it. But if you got one of these bad boys and you know what you're doing, this is fun. Let's see, you can put a fence in there. I got in there a little bit early. Timing is everything when you do this. If you go in too early, then it spills back into where you just scraped. But and I think what I'm going to do is put a little windmill back there. So I'm not going to get too busy. But this is so much fun.
Very cool.
Leave it alone, Mike. Okay. Okay, now, always paint with the biggest brush possible. That's just always to it. I mean, you start doing, I'm gonna do the foreground with this little brush, you're gonna be there all day, and it's gonna get boring, you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna go work on a golf swing or something. Right. So what I'm gonna do in the foreground here is the next bit of shape. I'm gonna put a road in here too, so I'm gonna put this foreground like an autumn scene, because the background has just got brown trees, so this is the autumn, or I could make a snow scene out of it, but we got too much. It's like about 15 minutes. Anyway, I'm gonna get this wet again, and I'm gonna use some yellow ochre and some variations thereof. If you know yellow ochre, you can be real liberal with this stuff. Because if you don't, this stuff can dry out awful lot. It's not, you end up having to come back to it, and you lose the freshness of what the watercolor's all about. If you hit it, the old general rule is the fewer times the brush hits the paper, the better. Because you're trying to create that freshness that you don't get with other mediums. Again, you can start an argument by saying stuff like that. I don't have anybody to argue with either.
We won't put up a fight.
Good, thank you very much. Anyway, I've introduced a little bit of this alizarin crimson to go along with the brown. And the yellow. Same thing over here. See, I've been in this water very little. So just to get the paper wet. And this barn will magically appear.
Cool.
Is there anybody watching?
Yeah.
Is there?
We got about, there's at least 15 on right now.
Oh, stop.
So the numbers kind of, they keep going up. We've got a bunch of shares going too, so I bet you people will keep jumping on throughout the talk.
But you can see what I'm doing, kind of little variations of this color. If we start off with just a yellow ochre, and I could have done the whole thing with yellow ochre and then come back in with these darker colors. But I want to do it as we go. And then, like in a teaching demonstration, I would do it that way, but this is kind of a show demo, kind of. Painted on live TV when, I gotta tell you that story, yes. The action auction for Channel 8 back in, it was 1971. My dad had been doing these, I'm putting some rocks in here while it's wet. My dad had been doing, his dad was kind of a big fish in a small pond back in those days. He had a gallery and all that stuff.
Sounds like it.
And he did these demos and donated the paintings to Channel 8, the KPTS. And we were cleaning up the yard one night, and Dad says, I've got to go down to the station. He looked at me, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, he talked me into going down to the station at 16, scared to death. I had more hair than I belonged. I should have had. My glasses turned dark, all these lights. Dad said, the one thing you got to remember is your paper is going to dry fast, so move fast.
Yeah.
I kind of got used to it. And I did 4 paintings on there.
Wow.
My dad used to tell a funny story about it. They had to drag him out of there. There was one underneath his fingernails when they were dragging him off the porch. But anyway, so you see what I'm doing. I'm indicating these light places. And since I did that, I painted on TV 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
Stuff.
Very cool.
They had what was that? Anyway, there was KPTS, and then they had the literacy telethon.
Okay.
Channel 10.
Yeah.
And old Mike interviewed me last time I painted on there. And the painting was terrible. I got through it, I signed it, I guess it was all right.
I'm sure
It was natural pretty, and I said, that's a dog. I didn't say that.
You seem humble to me. I bet it was pretty awesome.
They liked it, and they made some money with it. That was the main thing. Anyway, you've got to Okay, we've got these values. I want to talk about values for a minute.
Mhm.
The color wheel is, it's all pretty technical. When I do a workshop, I'm not there to teach you the color wheel. You can read that in a book. I will make reference to it. But a value, the value scale, the lightness and darkness of a color. And Stan knows that with black and white photography. Black is number 10 and white is number 1. Number 5 is neutral. That's the middle value in there. What we have here is about a what? About a number 4. This is about a 2 or a 3. I've either got to go lighter or darker, because if you took a black and white photograph of this painting, they would all blend together if the values were the same. Right? So let's get the value scale more interesting, so there's some contrast in there. So I think I'm going to go lighter. So the value should be 1, 2, and 3, something like that. So it's going to be very understated. I'd rather have something understated than overstated. Anybody can take a little tiny brush and detail the heck out of something. Oh! I want to see something happen, baby. I like this wet stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just goof around with this road for a minute. Little burnt umber, ultramarine blue. Oh, I like that combination. You lay that brush down if you got this textured paper. And you got this kind of looks like gravel across there. And this is something a person should have to practice. Because I used to make some roads, and I see those old roads I did back like when I was in high school and just had it there. So, that looks pretty bad. You know, it's, and sometimes if you get some dark areas in there, you can scrape some rocks in.
Huh. Awesome.
And a person can take it smaller. There's nothing saying you can use it smaller. Watch this. A little bit of this and a little bit of this. It's real easy to overdo this. Real easy to put too much information in. If you kind of squint at it, kind of blur your vision of it, how does it read? How does the whole thing read? And it's a good rule of thumb to do that. I always overdo these things. Not every time, but it's real easy to do that. See, you can lay that brush down. Well, on this good paper, it's a lot easier than on that slip paper. And then, that's what I like to do. Get a little bit of this brown, a little bit of this blue. This is watercolor. Like a little splatter in there now and then. Try that with an oil. Okay. Now what I want to do is have a much bigger shape as the barn. I'm still with this brush. I goofed around with that small one just for demonstration purpose, but here's a combination again with the burnt umber and ultramarine blue. Now I've got some Payne's gray here. I might goof around with that a little bit too. Just because it's scary. Paint it light to dark. Do your light stuff first. When you paint an opaque medium, the rule of thumb is to paint your underpainting is dark. Establish that. Then your middle values, and the last thing you do is your highlights, right? The lightest stuff. In watercolor or a transparent medium, it's the opposite. Paint your light stuff, the middle values, and the last thing you do is the dark. That can be a little scary. I've done some watercolor head studies, and you look like you're painting a Halloween mask until you finally put those last darks in. He says, bingo, you've got that cigar. Thing is, until then, you're like, am I going to pull this out? Is this going to work? But again, doing light first, and then the middle values, and then the dark is again the rule of thumb for these. Again, this paper is so nice. Oh. I've been painting on I'm doing my florals and stuff on that other paper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a guy can get used to it. I suppose it works pretty good for painting blossoms on a rose. But when you're doing these lines and roads and stuff, this is a lot more fun. This is a little bit hard to describe, so just watch and copy.
There you go.
Okay, put it in this. You kind of build your own barn, you know. If you got a good flat brush, it makes it a lot easier when you're doing this stuff. Again, I like old barns because you can't build an old barn. You know, they have to have the experience. Doing back in the summer of '22 when that tornado came through and we had to rebuild the whole end of that barn, and there's a lot of character can happen in situations like that. And I see all my stuff's vertical here, so let's do something horizontal. Again, this is one of those things that you can detail this to death. Remember, less is more and more is less when it comes to this stuff. Okay, now you've got basically your middle values are established. Now we can go to the darks and let's pull it all together. You need to burn umber, you need to ultramarine blue. And it's Payne's gray. Payne's gray, it sounds mean, doesn't it?
It's an intense gray.
Yeah. Anyway. I could paint that just a black square. A lot of people would. I want it to be a little more interesting than that. So it's a time when a person can have some fun within that area. If you're not talking to yourself, you're doing it wrong.
Must be talking. David Volbrock just jumped on. You can say hey to your buddy David.
Hi, Dave. My man. That's some nice work here. I'm going to change your signature and put mine on it. Leaning to one side. I don't like that. Let's see what happens here. bigger barn door over here. We're gonna run some cows through there to milk them and stuff. Spent just enough time on the farm to know that I don't like to build a fence. That's no fun at all.
Builds character though, huh? Oof.
Put blisters on here.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to paint now?
Oh, right.
Let's see. Okay. Now there's this vertical stuff going through my horizontal line there. I'll show you how to fix that. Just a wet brush. See, it's still there. It's that good paper again.
Ah.
Yeah. Disappear. Okay, now on this, again, you can decorate this, and my dad used to call it this gingerbready stuff. Put some nails, sometimes when you feel pretty cocky, you indicate some wood grain. I'm spending too much time. Okay. Now I'm gonna come to this brush. And this is a good one, I think. About every other one you get from Hobby Slob here, they're terrible.
Oh,
But
darn.
this is a pretty good one, I think.
Nice.
You can see that that big long handle must break that bad boy out.
Huh. All the tricks.
Indicate the lacy tree. Where I establish the light base and the dark ground back here, we're gonna do the opposite here.
Ah.
Basically, we're painting something that represents a tree. And you all know about the cottonwoods out there that get all gnarled up, you know, sometimes the limb will fall off and you can do some arty stuff. I can't think like that. You have to go out and draw and take a good picture of it.
There you go.
But anyway, they always work real good around these old buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Dave can paint those bad boys. I quit. Dave can finish this.
Oh, hush, hush. No.
I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, Mike, you ought to put some work in our community art show that opens tomorrow. Maybe we can hang on to this piece you're demoing, if you'd let us. We can put it in the show tomorrow.
You got it. I can do that.
It's a week-long show, Saturday, tomorrow to the 15th. So it's a week-long exhibit. We have about 45 artists in the community that have entered.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you mind this old Wichita dude.
Heck yeah, you're in our community, in our area, for sure.
I used to live here.
That's right. When did you teach at PCC? When was that?
That was in the late 70s. I think I got here in 78, and then we did my first workshop in 78. And
Awesome.
Did those two murals out in the Commons area.
Right. Okay.
Did that. I was pretty cocky in those days. The biggest workshop I ever did was 27 people in that son of a gun.
Wow.
I ran my tail off, and they had me on the front page of the paper. It was great.
Cool.
And then after that is when the continuing ed, they had me sign up for that. And that's when I started doing out district workshop. 16 contact hours, baby. That's what we had to do. But I had a lot of fun. That was great. I learned. I did the repetition.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said, just like the Beatles playing in Germany. You know, play the same songs over and over every night. You get pretty good at it. So, poor man's Beatles there. Anyway, that was some good experience, and I'll forever be grateful for
Awesome.
Pratt. I always warm feelings for my town, Pratt.
Very cool.
Yeah. But anyway, so I've got this stuff established here. I want to continue. Okay. Let's, I'm gonna do the, I don't know, put a windmill back there, just kind of a silhouette of a, where should I put that? Maybe over here. I used to have them do a demonstration of a windmill. Yeah, that line and that angle are too close. Dave's probably going, don't do that. I got a real pro watching me. I used to do that, and run out of things to paint. Show us how to do a windmill, and I says, I don't know how to do a windmill, I just fake it. But I know they have those gears up on the top, and then if it's in gear and running, then you have this from the side, which is pretty easy to paint, and then put your tail on there.
Cool. Wow.
And they've got a platform up here, so you get into some perspective drawing when you. So it has 4 legs on it. And again, I'm just going to suggest or indicate this stuff. You can get an idea of this windmill back there. Big fence post back there. Next to it. It's still too big, a little taller. Interrupt that just a little bit. Fun. It's fun doing these workshops when I can go one-on-one with people too, because you see them, you know somebody's, especially if you got something wet happening, I said, don't do that, you know, it's like you can know what's gonna happen before they do, so let me troubleshoot you. So I'll grab a brush and say, like this, oh, okay, and you have these little victories as you go. I kind of missed that. The last workshop I did in Wichita was a whole lot like what we're doing here, and so I don't, we'll get back to it one of these days.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of difficult, especially for the arts right now. It's just
Yeah. Actually, I'm doing okay.
good,
Facebook's been really good to me.
good.
And so,
Making sales on Facebook,
yeah,
good,
I got a couple commissions to do.
awesome.
I got a mural I gotta get to here before long.
That's
And so,
exciting.
Yeah, and it's all online, all the things I'm a techno nerd. And I said, I'll just hit the button, boom, I'm on Facebook. People say, hey, Mike, give me a shot, you know, it says, telephone, I like the telephone, I can tell what they're lying to.
There you go. You can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, good. The technology is great.
Yeah, technology works for me. I'm sure glad you guys are doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. Yeah. Stan said maybe we should take live bids for your work as you're painting here.
That's what they did when I painted it on Channel 8 that time.
I bet. Very cool.
I don't know how much they made.
That was a good idea, Stan.
Anyway, I'm going to indicate this, I like to put wire on there, and a guy could put some boards or whatever. I don't know, with the linear stuff, it's kind of repetition of the stuff that I've got happening here, I guess. And then barbed wire, to me, is more interesting than just straight wire. So, anyway, let's, I don't know, I can put a bush over here on the left and sign this son of a gun. I still got 15 minutes. This guy is kind of, sort of, let's see.
Good time.
Let's do it here. Well, my dad's really good at this stuff. Was.
I bet.
Lost dad a couple years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was, I'm missing, you know what, I'm missing more than I thought I would.
I bet.
Because there's always somebody I can go to, and I says, I know I'm gonna get an honest answer. Everybody tells you how damn pretty it is. The old man says, I don't know about that. I'm like, well, nobody else seen it yet, so.
Aw.
And I was the same way, you know. It's the one thing my dad and I didn't see eye to eye on a hell of a lot of stuff. But when we're talking, we get the paintings out, it was a different world. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I miss that.
Do you-
I really do.
Do you own a lot of his work? Do you have?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't. My sister does.
okay. So some of it's in the family. Do you guys?
Some of it's in the family. Yeah, I'm too mobile.
Yeah, yeah.
I got that wicked wandering eye from my dad, I guess. Because he moved around all over the place, been married 5 times. At least I've only been married once. Anyway, you know what we haven't done is indicated any grass. Haven't done anything with the grass. I don't really need to, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to grab some of this yellow ochre, some of this burnt umber, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and then well, this is the type of stuff that you can completely overdo. Sometimes I do too. Dark. Never established a source light. I don't think it needs it. I'll tell you what it needs. Come on, baby. Talk to me. Yeah. Just puts a little sparkle to it. I don't know.
Cool.
She just messed up that painting. I was going to buy that, but no. Let's see. And then just for fun, we can put Whitney used to do that. Some people think it's somewhat trite to put birds in there. But some put a little action in there. You know, it's like to have a little bit of life in your painting. I could detail that barn to death. I could work. I could work on that barn for an hour. I'm going to leave it alone. Less is more and more is less. Is there anything else you want me to do? We got about 13 minutes. Should I start another painting?
Let's see what our questions are.
Just hold it up so I can.
Okay.
Just a second here.
That's a good sound.
Yeah, that'd be important. It makes it official.
There we go. Okay.
Now
Very
there's
good.
the artist right there.
He is absolutely another fantastic
My
artist.
man,
Absolutely.
Stan the
Well, I got a question for you. So how have you developed kind of this, boy, is it just through experience or what? I mean, through presenting these workshops and working with students. I mean, you're obviously like a performance artist kind of in how you present this.
Thank you.
Do you feel like that's mostly developed through teaching and doing these one-on-one workshops, or have you just always been a good people person? Like, you just have a great personality for kind of teaching these things. I mean, we've just, this has been so fun. It's been
here. Yeah, that was awesome.
fun.
Yeah, no, hell, I've done this so often that, you know, that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
You know, when I played in the band and I was a bass player, and we did that. I'm not much of a bass player,
Yeah.
but I could work.
Too
I
close.
could work the crowd really well.
Yeah. Technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, now they can hear you. Thanks for bearing with us, everyone, as we learn this technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another question posted on here. Somebody wanted you to repeat the paper that you use and like what products you recommend in terms of paints too.
Yeah. All right. If you're first starting out, I would say get some student paper. The Canson seems to be good stuff. Strathmore makes a 400 series that is pretty good stuff. If you can afford it, get this. Arch's watercolor paper is the best. I mean, some people like Fabriano. Fabriano's good, but it's not Arch's.
Okay.
Not my book.
There's nothing like Arch's.
Yeah, paper. Nowadays, they have brushes that they use, Chinese brushes that hold a point pretty darn good and hold a little bit of water, but it's not like a pure red sable brush. If you can get your hands on a pure red sable brush for less than $50, get it.
Sable.
It's oh. I
Best.
mean, I could
Yeah.
spend a weekend with a brush. And if you can get the best colors you can afford, I've got this new stuff. Da Vinci is the series that I got from, what was it, Dick Blick, is where I ordered it. And those are pretty good colors. Again, if you can afford it, the Cadillac is Winsor Newton. And so Arches, Winsor Newton, and pure red sable brushes.
Those are the best.
If you get those two things, you and me can go spend a weekend.
They're important
Yeah.
equipment. Oh, good. Let me see here. Diane commented, your work is beautiful. Let's see, these questions are popping up here. Your work is beautiful.
Thank you. Oh, so
You've got lots of comments on here. There are a bunch of
great.
nice, beautiful thank yous. There's a bunch of thank yous for teaching. I'm kind of scrolling through these comments. They pop up just a little bit delayed here. Let's see. What inspired you to take up painting is another question on the list here.
Is my dad. I grew up watching my dad paint pictures. That's what he did. My first memories of life was my dad at the Colorado Institute of Art in Denver, and I was just a little baby. I barely remember that. But he was learning from a guy named John Jellicoe, who was a hell of an artist back in the day. And so that was where I watched him. And it's not like father, like son. Monkey see, monkey do. Watch me do this. Okay, I can do that too. That's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And by the time I was in grade school, I was winning all the awards. I was the artist of the class and all that.
Wow.
I was always trying to learn. I've done some crazy things in my day, but when I get in the studio, I'm serious.
Yeah.
This is what I do. I paint some silly things once in a while just for fun because that's kind of the way I am. But
How long have you been painting?
since I can remember, I probably started painting when I was 5.
Wow.
I'll tell you what I used to do is Dad had a studio at home and then a studio at work at AG, American Greetings. And I'd wait till everybody went to sleep and I'd sneak out to my dad's studio. And he had a great studio. The one thing he told me, I remember early on, you clean those brushes. You will not leave dirty brushes in here. You're not coming in here.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's okay. So, that's
Important.
one thing I did. I cleaned up his brushes. But David had these paintings started, and then I said, I don't think he's going to, so I'd finish them. I'd finish these paintings with my dad. And, my mom would be mad because they could see what I'd done the night before, and I got to go to school. Go to school.
Yeah.
Dad would take those paintings to work and show the other artists, look what my kid did last night.
That's so cool. Can you tell us about some of the work we have on display of yours also? When you did those? And
Yeah, these are just straight landscapes I did here within the last couple of months. And this painting here is basically, and you can tell, this background is all this stuff is done wet. So you think of the old boy might be painting fast, it's got, you gotta work out, the phone is off the hook, and you're banging that stuff out before it dries, so that's how you get all these soft edges on stuff. It's called wet on wet. As it comes forward, then, this is kind of, you saw me paint the yellow, that's exactly how I did this. Right? And then put the starch stuff in there, and scrape in there, you can see where I scraped in with the end of the brush, all that stuff. And then indicate some reflections, which I could have done there, but I didn't. And then come in with the liner and decorate that. Basically, it's just work from top to bottom. Try to keep it wet, keep it loose, try not to overwork it. That's the hardest thing to do, is to know when to stop. When somebody figures that out, you can tell them. This is this is another real wet painting. This thing is done in halves. This is all done before the paper dries. All this stuff in here, you can tell what I scraped in there. After it dried, I came back in with the liner and did all that. Same thing down here. I got the thing wet. Remember, when you're painting water, water's flat, horizontal. Still water reflects like a mirror. Okay.
Wow.
Got that done.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
Got good taste, let's say.
And here's one that I did where you put a whole bunch of color at the top and hold it up and take the spray bottle and spray it, and it comes down. And the thing is, if you kind of lose track of that a little bit, nothing saying you can't take a wet brush and kind of control it. Isn't that better? And again, this is all painted while it's wet. That's why you get those soft edges on there. So these paintings don't take very long, but they're action-packed hour. Whatever.
Yeah.
45 minutes or something. That took about maybe 45 minutes, but it's action-packed.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Every time to start.
so what do we got? About 5 minutes. Any more questions?
Let's see, let me look here. I don't see any more questions. I think we're about out of time. But, we want to thank everybody for attending. We want to thank you, Mike, for presenting. You are just awesome to watch. We want to get you back here to teach again.
Absolutely.
I think some of the questions on here are, can you get Mike back to teach at Pratt again? And it sounds like we talked him into maybe leaving his work here. So if anybody wants to come out to the community art show, that starts tomorrow, Saturday, just during our regular hours, 1 to 4. It'll be a week-long exhibit. We have a one-way walk path set up for social distancing. So we encourage people to come out and see Mike's fresh work. Are you going to be able to leave it?
Yeah, sure. I can read it, but I mean, it's just unframed and unmarried.
Yeah.
Is it okay the way it is?
It's great. It's great. Everybody can see what you created during your demo. Thank you for your expertise and your time and traveling here from Wichita. We really appreciate it.
I wish I could have brought my little dog, but.
Oh, yeah. I bet that's a good painting companion.
Yeah, she is. It's so fun. She'll get out there next to me and say, Abby, get away. Oh, I almost step on her. I'm sorry. So,
That's funny.
she's working quite a bit, but I left her alone today, so that's a good thing.
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love Pratt. I've always loved this place. I've got a crazy reputation probably, but that's the old days. And I'm older now. I'm only 52 now. I'm not going to tell you all that. Let's just say I'm getting Social Security. Well, you get inundated when you get that certain age, you know?
Good, it's good. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This video will continue to be available on our social media sites and our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get in on all this new technology so that we can continue to bring art and artists to you. Thank you for your support, and have a great day and a good weekend. Goodbye.